Hello, everyone, and welcome to North 100, a Canadian Highlander podcast. I'm Serge. Joining me, I have a Jer.
Hello.
An Alex.
Water glass.
And a Ben.
Splish splash.
Taking a bath. Reminder that North 100 is brought to you by you with your support over at the Patreon at patreon.com/LoadingReadyRun, or recently with the YouTube memberships. Regardless of how you choose to support us, thank you so much for making the show possible. Let's jump right into our opening segment, the best card that you're not playing. And up to date, I have an Alex. Alex, tell me your secrets.
So we thought we'd done this one before, but if it's not on the document, it doesn't exist. How'd you like to burn up all your opponent's creatures and not yours?
That sounds great. I want, one-sided removal.
Plague Wind? Is it Plague Wind?
It's Plague Wind.
Less
Plague
mana.
Wind.
Way less mana.
Less
In
mana.
Garrick's Wake?
No. We're talking about your boy, Fire Covenant.
Ooh.
So
What does this do?
It's 1 black-red, instant.
Good start.
As an additional cost to pay to play Fire Covenant, pay X life. Okay. It deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures. So it's kind of like choose your own wrath. Just like blow up a whole bunch of little creatures, or like one big creature, one small creature, everything. You just get them, and it's an instant, so you can do it anytime you want. This card really loves things like, I don't know, Stuffy Doll.
Yeah, it does.
It loves...
You all right there, Wheeler?
My head! My head! It loves Soulfire Grandmaster.
SFG.
Yeah, you get the rebate on that. But playing this as a one-sided wrath is pretty decent.
What are you playing it in? What kind of deck wants a Fire Covenant?
Any deck that wants to get rid of its
Get 'em.
opponent creatures.
Mostly mid-range decks, I think. Decks that aren't willing to commit to playing Damnations because they have a bunch of their own creatures, but also want to assume the role of killing their opponent's creatures.
Mm-hmm. You can maybe hedge against the life loss a little bit.
Yeah.
Sweet.
This card is a very iconic kind of Canlander card. If somebody's think about cool Highlander cards, it's all right, we got Werebear, we got Fire Covenant, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, it's always the card that if you ask somebody, not even new to the format, it can be someone that's been playing the format for 2 years. If you ask them about it, they're like, what's that? And you're just we got something to talk about.
Yeah. Real quick, can you flop your hair to the left again?
Oh, I didn't realize it was reversible.
And joining us on the podcast, Autumn Burchett.
Thank you.
All right, friends. Let's talk about today's episode. Today, due to very popular demand, we are doing our Commander 2019 set review. Because we've talked about it a lot, the Commander products can sometimes give some real spice to the Highlander format. And so we went through and we picked some of the cards that we want to talk about. Worth mentioning, anything that has been reprinted, we're not talking about. We're only talking about the brand new cards. And reminder, this is a Highlander point. This is a Highlander point of view. It's not exhaustive. We're not talking about every card, only the ones that we think are interesting. And we're also going to be going through by color. And unlike many of our set reviews, this is going to be a one-off. We've limited the number of cards that we want to talk about just to one today. And let's start it off with the Cliffside Rescuer. This is a 2/2 for 1 and a white core soldier. It has Vigilante. And for tap and sacrifice, target permanent you control gains protection from each of your opponents until end of turn. Keep going, I'll buy you time. Alex, tell me about the Rescuer.
I love creatures with tap abilities that also have vigilance, because you get to crack in with them and then use them. And this you can have up as a threat of activation thing. You can use this sort of defensively. You could use it offensively in a pinch to give one of your huge Voltron creatures protection from your opponent. Just
target creature becomes true name?
Yeah, that seems pretty good. But even if you're not doing that, you're just crashing in with this thing maybe every turn, and then you have this on tap to stop almost literally anything.
One-time mum?
Almost literally anything. It's just this will stop strip mine. This will stop
lots
of
sort
stuff.
of like a benevolent bodyguard type effect on a more relevant body, it makes combat really difficult for your opponent. Because anytime they attack and you have a creature that can potentially trade with the creature they want to attack with, they're essentially going to trade for this instead, which can make it a rough go for your opponent unless they have some removal available.
All right, next up, Mandate of Peace. 2 mana instant for 1 and a white. Cast only during combat. Your opponents can't cast spells this turn, and just end the combat phase. It's like a silence and a fog at the same time.
Sog.
Wheeler, tell me about this. You like storm and silence effects. Where do you think Mandate of Peace goes?
I do, but when I typically play them, they cost 1 mana.
And when do you cast them?
On my turn.
What about you go to attack with no board,
okay,
cast this, and then kill them second main?
I go to attack.
What?
Wait, you mean I just progress the game to
progress the game to the attack step, so you can cast this because you can only play it during combat, and then their shields are down. Like, is there a room for this?
So I think this card has at least some amount of relevant text on it, but that's you're creating a hoop that I have to jump through in order to kill my opponent. And the best part about decks like Storm or combo decks that are going to play these silence effects is that you don't really need those hoops. Silence doesn't say, like, all right, you can only cast this on a full moon if your opponent has lands printed before 2001 or something like that. So, and like, more and more, I'm actually becoming less focused on the white cards for Storm. What with stuff like Veil of Summer coming out being just the end-all, you're never going to, like, stop yourself from losing to counterspells, disruption, whatnot. That one we talked about in the Core 2020 set. So I don't like this for combo, because we already have up to 3 available white silences.
I was going to say, like, you've got Orum's Chant that kind of does the same thing, right?
Are you playing this in any other decks, or do you think, again, Orum's Chant is just a better version?
Turbo Fog. You can maybe include this if you're on, like, there's an archetype that used to pop up here and there, like a Jeskai Scepter Chant deck. It's an archetype that is very cool. You just got to recall
got better with
repeatedly.
Tribute Mage.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Tribute.
Tribute. It's weird because, like, the deck has received a bunch of new tools, obviously, because all it needs is an instant that's 2 or less, and it'll take sorceries and whatnot. But even in something like that, I don't know if this is exactly what you need.
Sure.
But it's got enough relevant text on it, so I think I wouldn't be too surprised if you end up getting got by this card from some account. Or
I was going to add that you guys are 2 cards in.
Yeah.
So just
keep going. Moving. Yeah. Savine's Reclamation is our next card. 3 mana sorcery. Return target permanent card with CMC 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. If this spell was cast from your graveyard, you may copy the spell and choose a new target as well. Flashback for 5, 4 and a white. Jer.
I'm not entirely sure where this card could go. Usually when you want to play these effects, you're playing them with the intention of being up on mana, like Unearth and the Unearth analogous type cards. They're particularly attractive because you're, like, the cost of them sometimes being dead is you're sometimes playing 1 mana for a 3-drop that's either going to kill your opponent or has a relevant enter the battlefield ability. This one does say permanent, so it's got a little bit more utility that way, but I personally just don't see a spot where it's going to immediately fit in.
All right. And the final white card we're going to talk about today is Thalia's Geist Caller, 3 mana, 3/1 human cleric with lifelink. Whenever you cast a spell from your graveyard, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying and sack a spirit. It gains indestructible until end of turn. Alex, you like graveyard synergies. Do you think this has a home?
I want it to have a home. I have no idea where it'll be, but this card is really cool and has a whole lot of stuff going on it. Like, it's a 3/1 with lifelink, which is, like, very aggressive and also, you know, is going to rebate you a lot of life. I'm trying to think what white X deck is going to have a lot of spells with flashback.
Like maybe white-blue just because you get value off Snapcaster.
Mardu, maybe.
Yeah,
If
maybe.
you're like the Mardu, like Pyromancer-y mid-range deck.
Yeah.
Or you could do Gravecrawler shenanigans with it.
White,
Whenever you
black
cast
Gravecrawler,
Gravecrawler
yeah.
with it, you get a spirit. And then
That's kind of cool.
This will go in something.
Yeah, it's neat. Definitely neat. All right, let's move
trade
on.
binder.
We don't have many blue cards we're talking about. Really, the bulk of this set review is going to be once we get to gold, but we'll get there. All right, Cadena's Silencer. 2-mana, 2/1 Naga Wizard for 1 and a blue. When it is turned face up, counter all abilities your opponents control, and Megamorph for 1 and a blue, which is morph, but you also get a 1/1. Jared has the word counter on it, which means it's a control card. What do you think?
it doesn't say spell, it says ability. This is like a tempo mid-range card, if anything. I personally think it compares unfavorably to Stratus Dancer, which is a similar card that counters non-creature spells, but Stratus Dancer has flying, and its base mode is a 2/1 flyer for 2, which is just a reasonable body, whereas this base mode is a 2/1 nothing for 2.
She's got a nice hat.
The art is cool. I like this sort of background. Looks nice.
All right.
But yeah, I just think the ability is more narrow and the body is worse than Stratus Dancer, and Stratus Dancer already sees minimal play in the format. So
here's a spicy card, Thought Sponge. 4-mana 1/1 for 3 and a blue. Creature type Sponge, has flash, and it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it equal to the greatest number of cards an opponent has drawn this turn. When it dies, draw cards equal to its power. Wheeler, what do you think about our humble little sponge?
I don't think this card will end up being very good. I struggle to find a situation where I want to include this card in my 4-drop slot that's very reliant on what my opponent is doing. Again, like, yeah, if you got him versus like a blue deck that is just like, well, my opponent, like, what situation are you against a deck that wants to draw multiple cards aside from like maybe a Sylvan Library or whatnot? And then they're like, well, I'm on blue and so's my opponent, and they have 4 open blue mana. I better invest a bunch of mana into drawing cards. Oh no, a Thought Sponge.
So the worst part about the Thought Sponge is your opponent still gets to draw those cards.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, I have a 4-mana 10/10. It's like, well, your opponent drew 9 cards.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's like Notion Thief.
Well, Notion Thief would be better because Notion Thief, they don't get to draw the cards. You get to
Exactly.
draw the cards. Yeah.
And it is a 4-drop, so.
This card is in a long line of cards that you'll find throughout this set review where there's a bunch of text on it. The text looks really appealing, but again, if you compare it to every other option in this mana cost, and even with this flexibility of having flash and punishing your opponent, there are just better options to play. There are more reliable things, maybe with less, with worse art. But
It's really cute.
this is a
Well,
cute
I've
little
got
sponge.
the next card just for you right there. I'm glad you asked, Wheeler. Bone Miser. 5-mana 4/4 zombie wizard for 4 and a black. Here, you ready for some text? Whenever a creature card is discarded, create a 2/2 zombie.
whenever you discard,
This is very important.
not whenever a creature card is discarded.
You were
Di-
about to read
different.
the text of Waste Not.
I thought this was just Waste Not. It's
No.
not.
It's
They
reverse
added,
Waste Not.
they added another word. Whenever you discard a creature card, you get a zombie. Whenever you discard a land, add black, and whenever you discard a non-creature non-land, draw a card. Well, that's interesting. Wheeler.
Not to sound like an asshole, but I think they actually took away a word. Instead of whenever a player, it's whenever you. Anyways, so this is a...
Isn't Waste Not just
Yeah,
opponents?
it's opponents.
Yeah, is it opponents? I thought it's everyone.
I'm
No, it's a-
90% sure
it
it's
is-
just opponents.
All right, well then
Oh.
I'll still be an asshole. Fine.
Well, that would have happened anyway.
All right, yeah, exactly.
Tell me about the Miser.
So... Okay.
Oh, hey, that's
Great.
him!
That's
Yeah, it's the same.
exact.
It's the same miser.
You guys didn't know this yet, but subtle call out to powerful magic later.
Oh god.
That's all I'm saying.
So Bone Miser. I'm actually a bit of a fan of this card just because of the implication that you can discard things to add mana. Anytime that you can add a bunch of black mana attached to something that is supposed to be detrimental, or draw cards, or I don't care about making zombies, but that's still relevant for the fair gameplay of playing this card. It's obviously a 5-drop. I'm not a huge fan of 5-drops that don't do anything when they come into play without any other abilities attached that are relevant to combat, but I think there's enough going on this card that you can do something degenerate with it. You can do some shenanigan that involves Wheel of Fortuning or just like Memory Jar.
Or just discard outlets even.
Yeah, just discarding a card. This and Scourge Familiar are pretty good friends.
This might just be a weird value engine, but we haven't found a home for it yet.
You know what's kind of cool with this card? The Cycle Lands.
It's also holding the conch, which means it's its turn to speak. Yeah. Well,
sick reference.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of weird, powerful, broken shenanigans, let's talk about Kirik, son of Yawgmoth. So for 7 mana, 4 and 3 black Phyrexian mana, which you can pay either black mana or 2 life, you get yourself a 2/2 legendary creature horror minion. Yep, but it has lifelink. And for each black mana pay in a cost, you may pay 2 life rather than pay the mana cost. And whenever you cast a black spell, put a +1/+1 counter on it. A lot of people, the internet exploded, a lot of discourse around this card of how broken is it to pay life for every black spell? Wheeler.
That ability is very broken, but you can't just look at that ability by itself. You have to recognize that you're paying at least 4 mana and 6 life to get a 2/2 legendary creature down. If there is some application where you can just Goryo's this into play or reanimate it and then go off, I'm interested in that aspect. I'm definitely going to be, shocking literally no one, I'm going to be playing this card in something, or trying out this card. But my initial reaction was a little more subdued than other people, I think.
What's the best, scariest thing you could cast off of this?
Bolas's Citadel.
I was just thinking that it makes it like a lot cheaper.
Or like a Doomsday. You can do. There are definitely shenanigans, but like that's not what I think about when you have a new engine like this card. I try to think about either like the worst thing that could happen, which is you play this, it gets shocked, or Caracas or whatever it may be, or you play this and then you just kind of do some medium shenanigans of like drawing some cards or killing their board.
Play Phyrexian Obliterator
like
for 10 mana.
slamming this and then
life.
like making them discard their hand. That's kind of neat. But my initial impression is it's a little too vulnerable to play fairly.
Yeah, but they printed this card for spikes.
Oh, because of the paying to...
No, because it has
on his
spikes
armor.
on the art.
You're making a reference to the spikes on its art. I see.
Next up, we have Mire in Misery, which is a 2-mana sorcery for 1 and a black. Each opponent sacks a creature or an enchantment. Alex, you finally have enchantment removal in black.
And it's not the worst.
Right?
Edict effects are... They don't see a lot of play, as I've seen, but like this is stapled to an additional ability that could see some relevance. And it's like anytime black has an ability to interact with a thing that it never interacts with and isn't like grotesquely overcosted, I'll pay notice to this one. It'll probably sit in my sort of like maybe pile, and then I'll bring it out to just like make you cry.
Yeah. Wait, what?
Well, it's not even that good against Enchantress, right? Like,
Well, no,
you're
because
like,
they have too many.
I
have
sack
a
my
million
wild growth.
things. Or
Yeah.
even against like lands.
It's good against like blue-white control, where you're going to get their moat or their future sight.
Cast
Yeah.
out or something.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to red. Starting off, we have the Backdraft Hellkite. 5 mana, 4/4 dragon for 3 red. Since it's a dragon, it flies. And whenever it attacks, each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. Flashback cost is equal to its mana cost. Jer, what do you think about this dragon?
It's really interesting. The ability is super powerful. It noticeably doesn't have haste, which like may seem obvious, but just when comparing it to Thundermaw Hellkite, the one that deals 4 to non-dragons and exerts
Glorybringer.
Glorybringer, yeah.
Storm Breath Dragon.
Reality Smasher.
Yeah, just all the other 5s seem to have haste. Although in blue decks, not having haste isn't as important as the non-blue decks, and the ability is really good in blue decks. So
yeah,
I'd be interested in trying it in something like Blue Moon, maybe.
I was gonna say Blue Moon, yeah.
Well, because you crack in and you can cast it's each.
Maybe worthwhile.
Yep.
It's not even just one; it's everything.
Like, contrary to everyone's belief, blue decks don't always have 7 cards in hand. Sometimes you do get attritioned out.
What?
But
you counter everything.
In those types of games, having something like this or a Consecrated Sphinx that can just like get you back very far ahead very quickly is definitely worthwhile in trying, at least.
Beep, beep.
All right, let's head over to our next red card, Ignite the Future. 4 mana sorcery for 3 and a red. Exile the top 3 cards from your library. Until end of your next turn, so it's using that same Skewer the Critics wording. Is that the card I'm thinking about?
Light up the stage.
Light up the stage sort of templating. You may play those cards. If this spell was cast from a graveyard, you may play those cards instead of paying their mana cost. Flashback is 8. Wheeler, what do you think about this? Is this breakable?
This card certainly has a lot of text on it that seems appealing, but if I'm going to dedicate a slot in my deck to a card with a similar effect to this, I just rather play Mizzix's Mastery. Because Mizzix's Mastery wins you the game when you cast it.
What does that one do?
So for those not familiar, it's another commander card, actually. It's 3 and a red for a sorcery. You exile target card that's an instant or sorcery from your graveyard. For each card exiled this way, copy it. You may then cast the copy without paying its mana cost, and you exile Mizzix's Mastery. Then, it also has Overload, which is 5 red, red, red. So when you overload a spell, you cast it for its overload cost instead. And if you do, you replace each instance in the text of target with each.
So you get to cast everything in your graveyard.
You get to cast for free every instant and sorcery card from your graveyard.
Huh.
That's busted.
Yeah.
The application for that kind of card requires some dedication to deck building and like minimal setup. But the setup that you would use to get it, let's say your blue-red deck. Can you think of blue-red cards that draw cards and discard cards?
No.
We may have talked about some
Easy
recently
peasy,
as a best card you're not playing. So the setting up the top of your library or just being at the mercy of what's on the top of your library is really unappealing for something so expensive. And people have talked about Paradox Academy as a way of playing this kind of card because it's not limited to instant or sorcery. But honestly, I just rather play something like Drawn from Dreams in Core 2020.
Yeah, like casting cards for free is awesome. Usually when you can tell what those are before you cast them.
Yeah.
Right. You do have
obviously there's exceptions.
There are decks that can manipulate the top of your library, but it's not something that you put a whole bunch of cards in.
No, not worth the setup.
And almost everything that manipulates the top of the library that gets played in this format also draws a card.
Yeah.
So,
well,
let's talk about our last red card then. The Tectonic Hellion. Tectonic Hellion, I stand corrected. 7 mana, 8/5 with haste, and whenever it attacks, each player who controls the most land sacrifices 2 lands. I'm going to throw that one to myself. It's really interesting. I don't know. You're never paying 7 mana for this. You almost certainly.
I think you're almost never tapping 7 lands.
I think that's the important part. You're almost certainly trying to find a way to cheat this out.
Tap in some number of monoliths.
Or if you have some type of precious pig in play and you're like sneaking it out or something like that.
But then you don't get the attacks trigger.
It's a trigger on
comes into play tapped and attacking.
Wheeler, take it away.
So there are 2 points to this card. The most relevant one, which sounds really stupid now that I think about what I'm going to follow this up with, is Hypergenesis. Because it's a big creature that can really solidify, hey, you're not going to get to play Magic for the rest of the game. Or I can understand wanting to include it in something like a big red shell.
I don't like it in big red.
Well, 5 toughness is relevant,
Yeah.
right? Because
Dice roll
Survives
Wildfire.
wildfire.
Oh,
it survives
Sorry,
wildfire
right.
as well as
Well, it
It's-
wildfires itself.
huh?
Well, okay, it blows up their lands.
Yeah, that's fine. That's great. And you're probably going to have less lands in them, again, because a lot of your acceleration is
Is it
artifact
mana
base
rocks?
or soul lands, whatever it may be.
You like this in big red?
I don't like big red. So I mean, I guess it could pop up in this deck that I don't.
think it's better than playing like 11 drops or whatever in
Yes,
that deck.
for sure.
No, people play and cast 11 drops on the regs in that deck.
Yeah.
All right.
The thing that deck does, but
So it's some type of cheat deck that you want to take out your opponent's lands. I don't know. It's goofy. Let's move on to green. Let's start off with the Orin Frostfang. 5 mana 2/6 for 3 green. Snow creature, snake. Attacking creatures you control have death touch. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Alex, what do you think about our new snake friend?
Oran Viper or all the Viper. It turns your whole team into Oran Viper. It's like not a small amount of mana to pay, but
I think the weird thing about this card is it's a 5-drop in green.
Technically,
In green,
Orin
it-
Viper doesn't have death touch, too.
go away. Go away.
All right, Jer.
Stop talking.
I mean, in green, 5 mana really isn't a lot of mana to pay.
Yeah, this
for
is
something.
I mean, I feel as though that this represents like a lot of headache for your opponent, because like I was initially going to compare it to Edric.
It is
for, like, drawing
similar
cards?
to Edric, except it makes your mana dorks just like you just ship your mana dorks into their like locks it on smiters. And are you
It
gonna
also
block?
has Sahix toughness.
So with this creature, are you happy if you're a green deck and you ramp this out as opposed to like a 5 mana 5/5?
Depends on the matchup.
Yeah,
depends on
because
what
this
you-
represents a very different clock, but a very different deck.
If
I mean,
you've gone really wide, this is nuts.
I just want to play this in opposition.
Oh!
I think that's
Oh!
the biggest home.
Oh,
It's great in opposition
Yeah.
decks for sure.
oh, it's dirty all over me.
interesting because you have enough little bodies.
You got
Interesting.
small creatures. You're able to turn your board sideways, draw a bunch of cards. Ideally, play like a Deep Forest Hermit or some other thing to clog the board, or Time Walk. That deck can often just play a bunch of Time Walks. So you attack, draw some cards, Time Walk, do it all again.
Yeah,
Right.
this
Great.
seems real good with hermits.
Interesting.
Okay, well, look forward to dying to this.
And next up, we have Selesnya Eulogist.
Eulogist.
You all.
Oh man, I haven't even gotten to like the nouns yet, and
This
I'm
was
already
a
getting
cold
roasted.
shot by a lot of people that you would mess up this word, by the way.
Don't bully Serge.
You guys started it.
Only we can bully
Only
Surge.
we're allowed to.
So the Eulogist is a 3 mana 3/3 Centaur Druid, 3 mana 3/3 activated ability, 2 and a green. Exile target creature card from a graveyard and then populate. Alex, what do you think of this card?
Cool. Like, I'm thinking already just like green white, just because it makes those colors make some really like nice thick creature tokens. It's also incidental graveyard hate. Like, you would normally think that this is like a cost to be paid, but you know, even if you don't have something to populate, you know, just ping off junk in their bin. It's a lot of mana
Specifically
to
only creatures, but that's fine.
yeah, but those ones are oftentimes the really scary ones.
All right.
I'm super not hot on this. I actually don't think this is playable at all. It's I do love Ancient 2 mana, but like a 3 mana 3/3 with no immediate impact that requires synergies based on the deck you're playing, as well as having additional things in the graveyard and a massive cost attached to it, seems like a bit much to ask. Like, I rather just play
I don't think
any other thing that makes it.
I don't think it goes in every deck.
No,
But
not
I
at all.
I
I
think
mean-
if you're like a deck that is making tokens, I think it's a perfectly fine
I feel
include.
like you sleeve this up next to what's that? What's that one that makes the 5/5 with trample? The token.
Advent of the Worm.
That's the one. That seems pretty good.
Let's move on to the spice now. The gold cards, the new legends, and probably the majority of what people wanted to hear us talk about. Let's start off with Anya?
Anya.
Anya?
Anya.
Like the musician?
Anya.
Anya Falconwrath, 3 mana, 1/3 for 1, a black and a red. Legendary Vampire has haste. Tap, discard, draw a card, but whenever you discard a card, if it has Madness, untap the Falconwrath. Wheeler, start me off with this one.
So Madness is a extremely powerful keyword that doesn't have a lot of playable cards with it. Like it will pop up from time to time. We have a card that we actually missed, now that I think about it, in red, that is one of the most busted Madness cards they've ever printed.
Wait, what?
We'll get back to that, I
Okay.
guess. But this one, I think there's enough application in, say, like a World Gorger deck to merit a slot for this card, just because you're looking for ways to put stuff in your graveyard immediately, getting rid of big creatures in your hand, and then drawing a card like the reverse looting, rummaging, or whatever it's known as, is pretty relevant. Obviously, being a 3-drop that can get Caracas is a little poo-poo, but it survives shocks, blocks Savannah Lion type creatures. I think this card's perfectly fine, if not just a bit niche in its application.
Okay, next up we have Anya's Ravager.
Oh, there we go.
Why is this in red?
I don't know.
You goof.
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column. This is actually the most beautiful segue possible, though.
Yeah.
Because this card is Anya's. It's her
alright.
Ravager.
What does it
frankly.
do?
So Anya's Ravager is a 3 mana 3/3 for 2 and a red. It gets you a Vampire Berserker. Must attack each combat if able. Whenever it attacks, discard your hand, and then draw 3 cards. And you could Madness it for 2. I wanted to throw this to Alex, but Wheeler, you were already talking about this.
This card is so good. I am a huge fan of this card. I'm potentially willing to just call it the best card in this set. It's Ancient Tomb mana, very quick to come out, reasonable body. Obviously, attacks each combat if able is a miserable line of text, but you're pretty aggressive. You got burn. You want to use that burn to clear your hand out to remove creatures in play, so that when you can attack, you can discard your hand, which you have none, and then draw 3 cards.
Like, even this thing slams headfirst into a brick wall, you might get to Ancestral.
Also, let's just say you're a red deck or a red X deck that has no cards in your hand, and you have a gamble in your deck, and you draw this card. You could just gamble for Anya's Ravager, immediately put in your hand, discard it to Madness. There you go. Cheap little tutorable Panglacial Worm. Ta-da!
I mean,
Okay, that's pretty cool.
much smaller than Panglacial Worm.
Huh?
All right, next up, Chainer, the Nightmare Adept. 4 mana 3/2 for 2, a black and a red. Gets you a legendary human minion. Discard a card. You may cast a creature card from your graveyard this turn, activated only once each turn. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if you didn't cast it from your hand, it gains haste.
Which Belmont is this?
The bad one.
Alex, what do you think of this?
I like cards that give my creatures pseudo-unearth and also haste. This is a really cool ability. The thing that concerns me the most is that 4 mana cost, which is,
And the 2 toughness.
and the 2 toughness. Those are a drag. This ability is super crazy, awesome, cool. It remains to be seen whether I'll be able to exploit it as much as I'd like to. Because, just being able to pitch creature cards to either cast something else in your bin or cast the one that you pitched. Like, the timing works, is that right?
You discard your Bloodghast to cast a different creature, and then play a land. Now they both have haste, regardless of the life total.
Yeah.
Fruit.
Choo,
Fruit.
fruit.
Don't even worry about it. Don't even,
Okay, look, there's blueberries. Let's keep
the
going.
blueberries on the train, and we also have Aisha of the Infinite. 5 mana 3/3 for 2 and a Jeskai, I think.
Yes, and Elsha.
All right, Elsha.
Well, that's an L.
That's not a capital I. Interesting.
Second.
So you only capitalize the first letters, what you're trying to tell me. All right, interesting. That's how language works. So 3/3 legendary Jin Monk has prowess. You may look at the top card of your library at any time, and you may cast the top card of your library if it's a non-creature, non-land card, and you may cast it as though it had flash. That's pretty spicy. Jer, what do you think of this card?
All right. I'm going to speak to this card as somebody who loves random 5-drops more than most people and who loves feature sight more than most people. This ain't it, Chief.
Aw.
It's only got 3 toughness for a 5-drop, which means it's good. You're going to trade down on mana quite often. The feature sight ability being like quite narrow is not terribly exciting, although you're likely to play it in a deck where you're going to hit most of the time, but still you're going to have like maybe slightly over half if you're really pushing.
Well, I mean, Future Sight is amazing, partly because you can just play a land off the top and it's like drawing a card.
Yeah, totally. And the fact that this cannot play lands makes it a pretty big downside. The fact that it gives flash to your sorceries and planeswalkers and artifacts is pretty nice, especially with the built-in prowess. But yeah, just it's a legendary 3/3 for 5 mana, and that's a lot to get past, and the other text on the card doesn't quite make up for it.
Alas.
Let's move on to Gerard, the Weatherlight hero. 4 mana 3/3 for 2, a red and a white. Legendary human soldier with first strike. When it dies, exile it and return to the battlefield all artifact and creature cards in your graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn. Wheeler, this is an effect that we've seen you use in other decks before, right? Like this seems powerful.
This does not go in eggs.
Why?
But Ben, it's second sunrise on a stick.
That makes it infinitely worse. So it's not going to go in it for a couple of reasons. One, being a 4-mana card across 2 colors is a bit iffy. Like, more and more I'm straying away from from red cards in eggs, unless I'm a dedicated build with some of the red synergies. Also, just like this isn't... You're not super strapped for these kind of abilities. Like, you're not really like... Every spoiler season, if let's say they come out with another second sunrise, I'm happy, but I'm not like, oh yeah, here we go. It's like, oh cool. And when it's attached to what?
Dies to Vindicate.
Yeah, sure does. Thematic. Well, but here's the thing. It has to die. How is Eggs going to kill this card?
You can sacrifice it to your Clan Ironworks.
Yes. With all the Mycosynth lattices.
No,
You can't.
liquid metal
I know
coating?
you can't.
All right.
Before everybody in the chat room.
Does this go anywhere not in eggs? Does Boros care about this effect?
No. This goes in a commander deck.
All right. I mean, that's fair.
That's it. Yeah, there's...
All right. Then let's move on.
Are you going to build commander eggs with that as your commander?
No,
since it's repeatable.
I'm going to use
as a
Egg
commander.
Queen as my commander.
Hi.
Eggs commander.
So somebody tell me how to pronounce this.
Gerard.
So Gerard, the Conclave Exile.
Nailed it.
5 mana 2/5 for 2 and a Naya. Legendary human shaman. When it enters the battlefield, create a 4/4 green rhino creature with trample. Whenever it attacks, populate, and the token enters the battlefield tapped and attacking. This one seems more powerful. Jer, what do you think?
This card's pretty good. Comes in with 6/9 worth of stats for
Nice.
5 across 2 bodies. This is a random 5-drop that I can get behind. It snowballs itself. It doesn't require any additional synergies. Like, the token is quite burly. It's not likely to die to just any old removal spell. They need a real removal spell to remove the token or it.
Hey, does Naya have any way of giving its creatures haste incidentally?
Nah.
I can only think of 10 off the top
Splash
of my head.
for Chainer.
Yeah, this card's quite powerful even outside of a token deck, even in just like a mid-rangey deck.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, that's a lot of meat.
Tax for
much
10.
much better.
All right, next up we have Griz Mould, the Dread Sower. 3 mana 3/3 for 2 a black. For 1 a black and a green. 3 mana 3/3 means it adds up to 3, Serge. Legendary Troll Shaman with Trample. At the beginning of your end step, each player creates a 1/1 green plant creature token. Whenever a creature token dies, put a 1/1 counter on Griz Mould. Alex, what do you think about this card?
What a weird card that is difficult to assess. Because, well, I'm always very suspicious of anything that gives my opponent anything. Although it's giving you something at the same time. And
It's symmetrical.
sort of. It's also like a green-black creature that gets bigger via counters, so I'm always going to like at least be giving this a second look for for Black Mould. Do you guys have any experience with effects that give your opponent creatures for free?
Only in, what's that enchantment deck?
Oath of Druids.
Oh, only in Oath of Druids decks.
But this wouldn't work in Oath.
No, because you'll always have more creatures. That's the weird thing, right? There was a weird cycle of cards in old original Ravnica.
Hunted.
Yeah, the hunted cycle, where you got a really powerful creature, but it always came at the cost of giving your opponent something that countered
This
it.
card is much better than
this-
the Hunted Cycle.
Yeah.
I think this card's really, really good.
I'm pretty into this card.
So okay, let's look at a typical example. You cast this guy, end step, both of you get a plant.
Great.
Yep.
You untap with it. You crack in with impunity with this plant token because you do not care what happens to it. 'cause
Correct.
Either way, it's good.
Likely the most favorable block they'll have is trading with their plant token, in which case you now have a 5/5 for
Yep.
3.
All right.
This card
With,
seems pretty
with
cool.
trample.
Yeah, the trample kind of
Yeah.
Trample
this
makes
a
this
lot
card.
better.
Yeah.
Trample is the ties it all together.
If it didn't have trample, this card would not be that exciting.
Soup.
All
All right,
well,
and then let's move on to our last gold card that we want to talk about today, which is Marissa Breaker of the Coil. 4 mana 5/4 for 1 and a Naya. Legendary Cat Warrior. Your opponent can't cast spells during combat. So that fog that we were talking about in white, dead. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, goad each creature that they control. Jer, what do you think about this card?
I don't think it's that great. It's just a dummy 5/4.
but it's dummy thick.
I mean, it's not even like
It's not that
like
dummy.
there was a time when 5/4 for 4 was good stats, but I actually think we're past that. I just
It
think
needs a
there's like
keyword. It needs trample. It
There's-
needs first
This booty
strike.
does not clap.
yeah, there's too many better creatures out there, and like your opponents can't get spells during combat. Like, come on, at least make it on your turn. Like that's the template we've been getting. As a blue mage, I see that and I'm like,
Okay.
I don't care. Like, I can counter spells in your main phase.
Or it's
Yeah.
just
I'll
like,
still cast my draw spell on your end step.
or just like on your combat step,
Combat.
do whatever.
Yeah, what are you going to
Eh.
try and cheat through at that point? So let's talk on a broader scheme right now. There are a lot of other legendary creatures that we have not talked about. There are an innumerable amount of 5 mana 3/3s or other things that have cool effects, but that we're just not addressing. Wheeler.
I'll get this in under 2 minutes, and I want this to go right to the heart. So when it comes to magic cards, especially big creatures that are legends, in the past couple of years, we've seen a lot of really powerful 4s and really powerful 5s in the grand scheme of things, be it the Cavalier, be it the legendary creatures from this set. But that, of course, they're going to be powerful. That's how they're designed. They're a 5-drop. 5-drops and 4-drops and whatever top-end creatures in modern-day design are designed to be powerful and appealing, because when your 5-drops aren't powerful, then you feel bad. But here's the thing. If everything's powerful, then the definition of what actually is worth playing when it's powerful shifts. So while you have a bunch of these 5s and 4s that are like burly Catman warrior with a weird ability attached, I just rather play a humble palace jailer or something other than that. And when you play these cards and you think, well, I played Marissa and it killed my opponent. Yes, because that's what the card was designed to do. But like, all these cards are designed so that if you do untap with them, you're probably going to kill them. But you want to look for, instead of cards like Marissa, or Yarok, you want to look to cards like Titania or to Jared as you called him. That style of creature that provides some other level of value when it comes into play, difficult to deal with, and impacts the board in a way that is going to end the game instead of just punch face.
Very nice.
Great.
So that's going to conclude the gold section.
I'd like to congratulate the entire panel on not making the obvious poop joke in Maurice's name.
Roll the credits.
No, we have artifacts to talk about. All right, let's move on to artifacts. Empowered Auto Generator, 4 mana artifact, enters the battlefield tapped. Tap, put a charge counter on it, then Add X mana of any one color where X is the number of charge counters on it. Jer, you love mana rocks. Where does this go?
Tier 7, Serge. Yeah, people are going to say it's really good with Paradox Engine. And while
because it untaps every time you cast a spell.
That's mostly true. You aren't always going to have Paradox Engine. You want your cards to be powerful outside of the best possible scenario. And this card is just really, really slow. The deck hardly plays any 3 mana rocks that enter tapped, essentially only Worn Power Stone because it's very, very efficient. This card is not very efficient and enters tapped and is very slow.
So even for the air quotes infinite potential off of, it's not even infinite by itself.
If your justification for including a card is it's good with deck namesake, then like usually a deck is named after a singular card because that card is so busted with everything. You got to do more than that.
Okay. Next up, Idol of Oblivion. 2 mana artifact, tap, draw a card, but activate this ability only if you created a token this turn. And then for 8 and tap, sack it, you get a 10/10 Eldrazi token. Wheeler, what do you think about this card? Also in maybe Academy.
So I want to
Paradox.
So if 6 months down the line, someone's like, Ben is such an idiot. He thought this card was fine. You know what? That's perfectly reasonable. However, the more we're getting cards that generate tokens on ETB or on an activation on artifacts, the more I'm thinking that this card can go infinite with a series of other things, or it can just provide some kind of incremental value, be it through Psi, be it through the various Voltaic keys, rings. Yeah, this combos with a bunch of different things.
Do you like this with key?
I mean,
Do
I
you
like
need
drawing.
key or no?
I don't think you need key. There are other untappers that you can play to generate value from it. It's a little like I'll definitely try it out. I'm not a fan of things that require other things to be good, as not evident from literally every set review we've ever done. But I think that the fact that this can provide a loop and drawing cards in a deck that is just card hungry at all times is worth giving it a shot.
I mean, because your typical thing is just going to be like Thopter draw, Servo draw, Golem draw.
I actually thought this was a Prisoner of Pox card originally. I could see it going in those decks as well.
Oh yeah.
Well, we'll see.
All right, let's go now to the Scare Tiller. 4 mana 1/4 Scarecrow. There's a creature type we haven't heard in a long time. Whenever it becomes tapped, choose one. You may put a land from your hand onto the battlefield tapped, or return target land from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. I got a lot of tweets about this card.
Did you?
Oh, same also.
It says land. Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't go to the most famous lands player at the table, Ben Wheeler. Clearly has the most reps on lands.
I don't like this. What do you think?
Oh, I don't like it either.
No,
bad.
it's 4 mana, and that's sort of the weird thing. Even though the effect is neat, and I don't.
Again, much like I said about a minute and a half ago to 2 minutes ago, people were like, "Oh, this card's great with Tolarian Academy and Urza." It's like, yep, because those cards are just absolutely broken
by themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you're not. If you manage to strip mine lock somebody, take a screenshot and send that to me. That'll be interesting.
There's a cool loop that involves these cards, but again, it's a loop that involves Academy, Urza, Zuranor.
Like other powerful things,
Yeah.
right? So it's fine. And then finally, the last card that we're going to talk about today in our set review is the Scroll of Fate. 3 mana artifact. Tap. Manifest a card from your hand, which means basically put it onto the battlefield face down as a 2/2. And you can turn it up face up later on if it's a creature card. Jer, take us home.
This card just isn't that exciting to me. It's essentially tap, discard a card, put a 2/2 into play with some upside, and I would never play that card. Like, it does make your 2/2s uncounterable, I guess.
Well, it technically makes all your creatures uncounterable. The one thing I thought about with this is, what about that old weird card,
Illusory
Phyrexian Juggernaut.
Phyrexian Juggernaut?
Wait, what?
No.
No, you're what?
What?
Dreadnought. You're
No.
thinking of
Dreadnought, yeah.
Phyrexian
sorry.
Dreadnought? Yeah.
We could talk about Phyrexian Juggernaut if you want.
No.
No.
Phyrexian Dreadnought, which
You
is
know what I meant.
Which is an old card.
Said the wrong thing.
1 mana, 12/12.
Yeah, 1 mana 12/12. When it comes into play, sacrifice any number of creatures with total power 12 or more, or bury it. So there's an old cycle of cards that have really bad ETB abilities but are very powerful.
It's called
The
literally
Hunted
every
cycle.
creature printed before 2000.
Yeah, and technically that lets you skip that sort of effect or makes your creatures
Somebody's
uncounterable,
Gonna
but
try and make this in Legacy, and maybe
I
they'll
mean,
be disappointed.
Stifle Knot is a recurring tier 7 deck in Legacy.
yeah, Stifle Knot's been
It
around
has
for a while.
it has won tournaments like more than 15 years ago.
Yeah, you're like turn 2 12/12, I win.
I think
But-
I want a Pro Tour.
I don't know. So yeah, no.
Yeah, I just don't see why you would play this over like a card that generates more than a card's worth. Like, this is generating you 0 cards worth of value. You play it, you're down a card, and every time you manifest a card from your hand, you're just like turning a card in your hand into a 2/2, and like turning excess lands into 2/2s is nice over a long game. Making some of your creatures uncounterable is nice, but you're losing all ETBs. Like, I just don't see a deck that wants it. Like, one of the reasons I forget the name of it, the 5 mana blue enchantment that
Primordial Mist?
Yeah, Primordial Mist. That card is my jam. But one of the reasons that card is so good, it manifests the cards, and then you get to exile them and then cast them instead of just flipping them.
Sure.
So you get the ETBs, spells you can cast, lands you can play. Like, this card does it all, whereas
Sure. The other one
Scroll
doesn't.
of Fate just like no, you get a 2/2.
So real high level, what do we think of this from a Highlander point of view? There seems to be a couple of spicy cards, but maybe not the spiciest set for our format.
a little garnish.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm all
Yeah,
right.
like-
I'm all right with. We need a break.
We've been running real hot with incredible Highlander sets recently. This one is just like not one
Yeah,
of them.
it's like Modern Horizons. Woo!
That's
I've spoken to a bunch of my friends, and they're super stoked on it for Commander, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it was
It's almost,
intended for.
I was gonna say,
So-
almost like
oh.
it was designed for that.
yeah.
So,
Well, all right, friends, that's going to be it for our set review today. As always, if you think we missed any cards, let us know down in the comments below. We always appreciate that. Let's move now to our closing segment, Powerful Magic. Yeah. And up today, hinting to it earlier, we've got Jer. Jer, tell us the story.
So I was reminded of this story by a friend of most of us, Spicy Napalm. Ben nods.
Recurring.
So it was from a stream from a while ago. I was playing Scape Shift. I was
Nice.
playing against well-known Highlander archetype, 5-color Wheel of Fortune, Smothering Tithe, Waste Not.
Pardon?
You heard me. The game was going quite long. I got up to my required number of lands in play. I had a flipped Search for Azcanta. However, my opponent had Animate Deaded a Notion Thief. We were both essentially top decking. However, I was also activating Search each turn. So I felt like I was in a pretty good spot, since Search is unhindered by Notion Thief, since it puts the card into your hand, does not draw the card. So Azcanta, the Sunken Ruin, is the flipped half of Search for Azcanta. It lets you look at the top 4 cards, reveal a non-creature, non-land card, put it into your hand. So actually quite good against Notion Thief. I eventually found a Mystical Tutor, passed the turn back, Mystical for Scape Shift on their turn after they had played a top. They spun the top and then passed back to me. In my draw step, I draw the Scape Shift they knew I had.
Very nice.
Then I'm like, haha, I got to draw the Scape Shift, I'm going to win. However, they held priority in my draw step, drew at their top, revealed Reforge the Soul. And notably, they had Notion Thief in play. So this would mean I would discard my Scape Shift, they would draw 14 cards, and I would essentially just be out of the game. So I tapped to activate my Azcanta in response, because otherwise I was beyond dead.
Yeah.
I found Maelstrom Pulse, which was a sorcery, so it's no good because this is happening at instant speed. Land, also no good. Counterflux, which I tapped incorrectly to be able to cast, and I found Abrupt Decay. So I took Abrupt Decay. Abrupt Decayed the Animate Dead.
Nice. Wow, good line. So Notion Thief dies.
Notion Thief dies. However, now I'm short on lands to cast my Scape Shift because I had to use 6 mana on my draw step to not die. So I had to just pass the turn back.
Did the Reforged Soul not resolve?
No, it did.
Oh, okay.
It resolved. So I had to discard. That's right. I discarded my Scape Shift.
Yeah.
We both draw 7. That makes more sense because they were about to cast a bunch of spells. I'm like, how did they get that many spells? But anyhow, on their next turn, they cast Smothering Tithe. They cast Memory Jar, and they had Waste Not in play this entire time.
Oof.
And then they just absolutely went off with Smothering Tithe.
So Smothering Tithe. When an opponent draws a card, that player may pay 2. If they don't, you get a treasure. Oh.
So they cracked Memory Jar with both Waste Not and Smothering Tithe in play.
Oh boy.
They got approximately 8 quadrillion mana, and then they cast like 7 more draw 7s on the same turn from like maybe they had 1 land untapped after they cast those. And absolutely went off, and I got after I thought I was like, oh yeah, the Scape Shift, I win. Then I'm like, haha, I found the Abrupt Decay. I'm still gonna win.
So I guess
And then
this deck
I just got
a new zombie.
Bone Miser.
Wow. I never even thought about Waste Not, Smothering Tithe,
Of course you didn't.
7 drop deck.
Bone Miser's ready.
I'm sad I've never brewed that deck before.
Yeah, it was such a wacky turn of events.
Yeah, no kidding.
I always have the most roller coastery games. I'm winning. I'm losing. I'm winning. I lost.
I'm dead. Well, friends, thank you all so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Want to remind you that a bunch of us are going to be at Magic Fest Vegas, so look forward to fun times and chaining that right into PAX West. So if you're at either of the conventions, please come up and don't hesitate to say hi. Want to remind you that Northern Hunter is brought to you by your support over the Patreon at patreon.com/LoadingReadyRun. You can also support us through YouTube memberships. Regardless of how you do it, thank you for everything, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.